Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to 5 and 5. We are at week 6 here. I'm Matt Dunn. This is Deemer class. We have some exciting film clips to run through today. We're going to try to stick with our newer format of 5 clips, 5 minutes of breaking it down and beating the clock. So we had some good games this past weekend and last week. We got some good footage to go through and excited to get it started. How you doing tonight, Deemer?
I'm doing great, man. It's cool. 6 weeks in, I think there's been a lot of awesome lacrosse. It's starting to you're starting to see some teams really take their identity and some guys, really start to separate themselves, but also I think some great battles, within different conferences. So I'm excited to see things keep shaking out, and I'm sure you're pretty pumped about the Terps' big win over Rutgers.
Yeah, I am. It's interesting. The one bummer about the season is that you kind of see a lot of the games restricted of who can play who. But the other cool thing right now is you're kind of getting really early action of this ACC, and Big Ten. And I think this weekend was the first time we kind of saw, there was a lot of buildup, I think, between UVA and UNC going into that game on Thursday night, which was an awesome game. And then the same thing, Rutgers was having, an awesome start to the season. Maryland was having a really good start. So that was kind of a title match also. So getting to finally see those games and cut some film down from that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we also got a great midweek matchup. Georgetown traveled out to Denver. Big win for Denver, a team that we actually went over a few clips early on. So it seems like they're getting some things going over there. And I'm excited to see, that Big East, matchup start to play out throughout, the regular season. I'm not sure if they play again before the tournament, but with how conferences are doubling up a lot of games, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, it's definitely exciting. For you, you had what, 3 years in the Big Ten or two?
2 years in the Big Ten, two ACC, two Big Ten.
Outside of Hopkins, who is kind of like your guys' like inner rivalry with in terms of those Big Ten teams?
Yeah. I think some of the younger guys would say Ohio State. I think the year after I graduated, they started to butt heads a little, and then obviously they played in the championship that next year. The team, I would say, Penn State always gave us a good battle. I felt like Rutgers was one that we haven't, and the announcers even said in the game, like, I think we're the only team in the Big Ten Rutgers hasn't beaten yet. But our senior year, they were really talented, and they happened for the last couple of years, and they continuously, give us a run for the money. And so I think that's a team that slowly, obviously there's Hopkins, but I think slowly as Rutgers continues to be competitive, will be one of those teams that you kind of see some competitive edge between Maryland and Rutgers.
I feel like the Rutgers game is always one of those ones where they're getting in the playoffs or, playoff berth or Big Ten berth is like depending on the game. And it's always seems like, what's that one line? It might be a Booker Corrigan line, like snatching defeat from the jaws of victory or like something like that.
No,
Like,
that sounds like a Booker line if it is one.
yeah, it's something like that. And I felt like it goes back to when Connor stuck that triple OT goal against
Yeah,
Rutgers. Like I
yeah.
have that like kind of ingrained in my memory. That might have been 2018. But I feel like there's these games that like, the Terps just find a way to win it out, and having Bernhardt step up with 6 goals and a big fourth quarter out of the Terps was pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, for sure. That Kelly play, yeah, definitely. That's one of those like iconic goals I just remember. And then my senior year, we played at Rutgers, and Rambo actually had an overtime game winner. I think it might have been my junior year. But similar kind of scenario, like game down the wire. It was like a tough fought battle. I feel like there's been a couple of those that are become really close. They're always a competitive team that brings a fight.
Yeah, for sure. We don't have Jules on here to defend himself, but
Yeah,
I know I know he's probably pretty bummed. But
he'll
yeah,
take it to Twitter.
yeah, he'll take it to Twitter. He'll have a lot of guys in his ear all season, I'm sure. So for sure. Well, hey, let's get into it here. I'm excited to see what you got.
Yeah, let me share my screen here. All right, give me a second before we get on the clock with this. I'm gonna give a little timer.
And if you guys haven't already, make sure you check out, Matt recently posted a blog this week on some pick play. I published a Duke offense blog for our FCL online members, which I was pretty excited about. We've got more of this content coming, and excited to keep seeing trends and themes and small nuances in the game that players and coaches can really take away. And we've got an exciting new feature for our FCL online coaches that we're going to continue to roll out. So stay tuned and make sure you reach out to us if you haven't already.
Yep, good points there. All right, here we're about to get started here. My first topic is pick play and calling it the stack and chip. So here we'll see in the two-man game as the pick is being set right around GLE, the off-ball player stacks the pick, gets right on the picker's back, gives him a little nudge, and steps out wide to get the chip as the on-ball player goes underneath it. Right, so this little nudge and chip right here forces the ball carrier wider, allowing the on-ball defender to come underneath. If he doesn't get that little chip there, it allows the dodger to come tight, especially right around GLE, and maybe get a shot off. But getting his hands on the picker, stepping out, allows the on-ball defender to recover. We'll see another example here, same idea, right here with Bubba Fairman, stepping out, getting a little whack. And as the dodger comes back around, he gets on the other side as well. A couple keys here to be cautious of are that when you step out, you got to be careful about getting slipped. One reason it's nice to do it right here around the hashes in GLE is you're not in a huge danger of a slip zone right here and more danger of him turning the corner. So you can see what defender comes under to take an angle. He stacks chips, gets back. Same thing on the other side, quick reach, but goes and makes sure he dives right on the cut there. And that is all.
Nice. I think you nailed it.
Yeah, so that was about a minute. I think I hit everything I wanted to. Maybe a little subtlety here is like one thing this stacking actually does and is interesting. I might go to the first one here is even when the guys don't give him a real nudge with the pick, just being there doesn't allow, sometimes pickers like to drift in a little, just having presence here. He's not blowing them up off the line, but just standing here doesn't allow 34 to drift in tighter. And the tighter you can set this pick to the crease, obviously, the tighter the ball carrier can come off it. So just being here, you'll see he forces the pick slightly wider. And as he does that, he forces the dodger outside the hash. Dodger has to change his angle, not tight to the pick, coming around, allows the on-ball defender to recover.
Yeah, that battle for pick positioning, I think, is always an interesting one. Like I honestly feel like it happened in our first couple games in the PLL as the refs were figuring out how they wanted to call the pick play. Like I feel like I knocked someone in the back when I was playing defense when I was caught. And it was like a blatant push, like a stack and a blow them up in the back. And like you were just trying to get away with what you could. And that's a great point about the pick positioning, because the tighter you can set this, to the edge of the crease, like the better shot angle and tighter the shooter is going to get if they run off of it. So if you can establish positioning and subtly drive that guy away, you can help your teammate navigate the pick.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point, I remember that, like, if you look at some PLL and maybe even some MLL footage, you'll see guys like blowing up picks. And even like I remember back when we were playing some D1 stuff at Maryland, guys would really take guys' momentum and keep them going down another yard or two. And until the ref would tell you not to, you kind of could. We'd play Hopkins and they'd flop like crazy and be in the ref's ears over it. So we couldn't really touch them too much. But you kind of just nudge guys down, and all of a sudden a pick that might be set, here is set there. And that makes a big difference because now the dodge 2 yards deeper has to widen out and you get a little hedge off that. The other thing it does is it doesn't let these guys get a quick slip, because they're not like, when you're not in complete control of your like quick subtlety change of direction, change of speed, and somebody gives you a little nudge, it lets you kind of feel the slips earlier. So not saying that has to happen all the time, and not saying you have to blow the pick up, but in some scenarios where you strategically plan and practice it, being able to get on this guy's back allows him not to get slipped, but to allow his teammate to get under the pick while widening out the ball carrier.
Yeah, great points.
All right, I'll go 2 in a row here, and then we'll switch it up. Let me pull my next clip up here. All right. All right, this next example here, we're going to talk about hammering the roll off. Now, this happens a lot in both man down and invert. First, we'll see invert defense with UNC versus Carolina. Now, what we want to look at here is that Carolina set up an invert D. They have their slider here, on ball here, back pipe right here. Notice as the ball gets thrown back, the back pipe dives down into this roll off right here, or this slip, and is able to kind of hammer it and meet the ball in the pass. Why that's nice is that these pull passes happen automatically a lot, and this guy can kind of time up his approach from behind the goal here. And this guy right here wants to catch this as tight as the goal to the goal as he can to turn the corner, and you can catch him off guard. In the next example, we'll see Hopkins here doing against Penn State's man up. As Penn State carries across and man up, their back pipe is rolling off. Same idea. Hopkins is able to meet the ball in the pass and widen that ball carrier out and really messing up the flow of the offense. So we call it hammering the roll off. And as this guy rolls off the crease right here, he's expecting a quick catch to turn to feed or go. And if you can meet him there, you can really buy some time back.
Nice. I love this second clip. This is like, I mean, you look at the two high Penn State guys going in for that seal to set up a step down shooter. I mean,
yeah, you can kind of see like if this guy's kind of a no man's land right there, he catches it and he's probably hitting that guy or the slip or maybe the back pipe quickly, right? There's kind of three guys he could see.
Yeah, and Matt, I'm going to talk about sealing the rotation in my clips, and this is the same idea, trying to seal this outside player who's going to be rotating out. And then once he fights outside, he's going to slip and look for the ball. And because they hammer the roll off, the feeder can't chop and make those looks.
Honestly, it's a good technique in, man down, slide rotations, pick play, transition, when you're kind of like little messed up behind the ball or you're a shorter guy. If you kind of sit back and let good teams pick you apart, there's a lot of options, right? And if this guy stays on the crease right here, sure, he's covering that guy, but he's kind of in no man's land as far as how much value he's adding. But by getting here right now, he saves all three of these options. They could essentially be completely open or have one guy cover them because this guy has to move away and can't get the feet off. Now he's, 10 yards behind GLE and outside the hashes.
And Matt, would you say that for young defenders that are watching, do you think this is a balance of, team scout and technique, or you think this is something that you would encourage, like as young guys are playing pickup, as they're playing summer ball, as they're playing individual events? Do you think this is something they could opportunistically look to do and not sacrifice the integrity of the team?
Yeah, I think 100%. This is definitely something that you at higher levels you will scout and you will game plan for, but it's definitely one of those things that it's an instinct play, right? So it's like it's kind of like in basketball when you go to steal a pass or something like that, or if you get in a good spot where you can kind of like sneakily anticipate something. This guy's kind of hiding behind the cage, and they throw these pull passes pretty automatically. Like this is, train play. This guy's rolling off for a reason. The play's happening on the backside here. So like he can't not throw it back there, right? And when he does, like as a defender, you just have to anticipate, like if this guy's going to try to catch it tight to the crease and it's like a backside double. If you think by the time the ball gets to a stick, you can be there on the pass, it's not very risky. Now, if this guy catches it back here and you try to sprint out to him and he has 2 yards to see you coming, now you just vacated a bunch of space and you're not getting pressure on him, that type of deal. But if you think you can, make the play, and at least you don't have to take the ball from him, but at least tie him up and buy time. Yeah, I think it's a really smart play.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in man up too. A lot of times if you're not playing on your natural side, you're still trying to use your strong hand to be able to transfer the ball and like catch cross body and still be able to spin it and find skips and stuff. And this is where it's always interesting too. Like I'm trying to think of, okay, like on that initial carry, should we get wider or should we get more above goal line extended? But it's tough with a pole. You don't want to get too tangled and have to like turn away and double it back to X. And then, hey, like, should this feeder maybe be a lefty? Like, and then he can catch it and still carry towards X and make this step down look. But I just think it's always tough to try and, again, like do everything exactly how you want. It's just really good pressure.
Yeah. And it's also like it's not that risky because you see like this guy's exactly where he needs to be and he's just waiting and he's seeing the pass and he when the ball goes in the air, he makes the sprint, right? So it's
Yeah.
at that point they throw these tight passes because you know in offense, the tighter and quicker you can keep it without getting a guy in your hands, the quicker you can hit these backsides. So there's a balance for this guy of like how deep do I need to get, you know, like and this guy of like I can't check to see if this guy's coming because I need to get the ball back over here pretty quickly.
I love it.
Sweet. Um, sweet. You're up, dude.
Sweet.
I hope we got
All right.
enough. I feel like sometimes our best points come after the minute.
It's because
It's
it's
like
the most natural. It's like
yeah,
I mean, every time I watch film, I always feel like I come up with something different. And it's like you have the things that you want to say, but then you see a different movement or a different nuance. And it's like, I think I might have said this before, but when I was watching film with Coach Byrne earlier this year, he was calling the way that he watched film like the Kennedy assassination. Like he was like, I take one clip and it'll be like 25 minutes with my guys sometimes. And it's like every single movement and this and that and every player. And, it's obviously it's a certain style, but like it is true where as a coach, we have to try and condense our points to keep it digestible for the players. But you could sit and watch some of these things over and over and pick apart every player on the field.
yeah, yeah. You definitely could. That's why when we do some of the film review stuff, we try to like people are like, "Oh, how many clips do I need?" And I was like, "Well, I've done 5 minutes of film that has gone like over an hour before, or it could be like, 5 minutes done in like 20 minutes, depending on like how we want to go through it."
Yeah, it's really true. And for those who haven't seen, like Matt and I have done, we did some preseason film study where we had 4 weeks and we covered different concepts, different offenses, approaches, a lot of stuff that, people can still access on replay. But also doing some of our individual remote sessions for players. I know, Matt, you do for your defensive guys that sign up, you do more, team film study and watching guys play in more of their defenses. But I also do, some more on the individual technique side, but then also wanting them to see how this stuff applies, in a team and game setting too. So, I think that's so key for these guys because we've always found that, how much high school film are you actually watching, with your team? Like it's not that much. And if you want to be a legit college player, you have to be studying film. And so it's been pretty cool to kind of build out that tool for the players that sign up for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So let me get my timer going here. In this clip, we're going to be talking about sealing the rotation. Denver's in a 42 offense where it's 4 high and 2 low. They get a backside cut and a top player filling. And what you're going to see here is on the redodge as the ball swings through X, Jackson Morrill is going to seal the defensive rotation. And when we rewind this, I think it's really key to even rewind and think about on the initial cut on the dodge down the alley, number 34 does a great job of flashing, and that takes the short stick D mid for Georgetown out of the next rotation, and see number 32 on the base pin his defender who can now not recover out, and that creates the next rotation from the high player a lot slower and longer. So it's a great way to think about sealing the defensive rotation to give your teammate a step down shot.
Bam, all in under 50 seconds.
I know it's a simple concept. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I missed that I thought was key. I think it's what I really liked is on this initial dodge, you get the mirror and pop, this low cut from 34,
Mm-hmm.
Work the matchup, no slide from Georgetown, but on
Yep.
this redodge, that triggers the slide, and then 34 hunting the ball inside. Now the rotation starts to get changed.
That seal is money. Like, it's a really nice, really heads up play right there, because you can kind of tell like the defender, knows he needs to get out, but that extra 2 seconds makes all the difference, right? Like right here, you can see him like try, like he's kind of caught.
Yeah,
Those
it's
little
great.
subtle plays are tough. Yeah.
And it's one of those things too where I just think this is a player being a player, because if you're 32 here and Morrill's a really smart player, when you're at this position, there's not much else he can do besides just cut through. So it's almost like, why not?
Right.
Like, he
And
could keep cutting, but like, where is he going to cut to? So he just kind of feels, he knows the ball's coming through X. He knows that Walker's either going to drive up the hash or he's going to throw it forward one more for that step down. And so it's like, just try and seal your guy and see what happens.
Yeah, and this is kind of Deemer. We looked at this stuff earlier in the year in Denver. I haven't seen him play much since the Duke game in the beginning of the season, but they were doing a really nice job of moving the ball through X and hitting the backside. And this is one of those examples where Georgetown is sliding from the crease to the low dodge, but also has their X defender, the guy covering X, above the cage. So now they're sliding from the crease, so they need backside fill, but they also are plopping their defender at X above the cage, so there's an easy outlet at X still, right? So those are kind of like the two factors of, hey, if you're going to slide from the crease, and this is, specific, but if you're going to slide from the crease and you have a team that moves the ball through X well, maybe try to get out there with the X defender, because you're not going to need the X attackman, because you're not going to need to show as much because you're sliding from the crease already, and that doesn't allow them to move it through. Or if you're not going to slide from the crease, then plop the guy on the crease, the X defender above the cage to show, but then the backside defenders from Georgetown hypothetically wouldn't have to fill so far, if that makes sense. But when you do both, you have a guy above the cage, easy outlet X, and you're sliding from the crease. Now you have a lot of responsibility to pull over to the middle of the field and an easy transfer through X.
Yeah, it's a great point. And honestly, what I think is pretty savvy here too is, to your point, he starts to try to get to goal line, and then I think wants to approach back at X. But because he's threatening to sneak this back pipe, look how he causes, some concern. And then still does a good job of showing up forward to then be that outlet. Now he gives him enough time, like he can still get back there, but I just think that's even an interesting thing to think about for X attackman, is baiting your defender by threatening to sneak back pipe, knowing that, hey, I still need to show up at X and get there. Like, you can kind of play that cat mouse hang up game off ball.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, like, that would be all for him. This is still hard for him to get back here, because at this point he might not know it's a redodge, and he might not know if the crease guy's still ready to go and slide or not. So he's like, by default, I would rather err on the side of caution and sit up here than like go backside of a front side dodge, if that makes sense. Because if he were to run backside with this guy and the crease guy didn't slide, then he would kind of look, like he made a mistake in giving up all that path underneath. So it's the side of caution there. The only way he would really know to do that is if the game plan, I don't know what their game plan was like, hey, you're always going to try to get back there when you can, because they're so good at this. And he makes it hard for him, right? That X attack makes it hard, like you said, by pushing that back pipe. Now he's like, he doesn't want to he can't go front side because he's going to get backdoor cut. So he's like, I got to go backside, but now if I go backside, well, I'm abandoning my show responsibility. So unless that was their game plan and the crease guy knew that, it's hard to make that call on the fly.
Yeah, 100%. We've, with our FCL offensive stuff, we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years documenting and working on redodging, and redodging always makes it hard for defenses to know when to slide. And when you do a good job of disguising your posture, it just makes it more difficult. So this redodge over here, again, it's just turns away from pressure. Looks like he's going to roll back. Now he's right into another kind of jab, rolls underneath. So he's doing a good job of working the matchup but still disguising the posture. And then, to your point, like, he might not know to go shoot back at X because it's hard to tell if that guy is just going to turn away and throw it or not. So that's another nice way to incorporate the redodge into, not only affecting and drawing a slide, but the impact it has on the other guys in the rotation.
Yeah, it's a nice play.
Yeah, it was a good clip. And obviously, Georgetown's been off to a great start too. So obviously Denver had to do some stuff exceptionally well to, put up 13 goals, I think. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see those two teams compete again later in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to go rewatch some of that. I don't know. Rumor has it that so the game was delayed, right? So rumor has it the Georgetown guys had to take 2 flights to Denver, and the second flight got in around 2 a.m. the morning of the game.
Wow.
So, I don't know. I'm not making excuses for him. I don't know, but
no, and that's just it did snow 2 feet in Denver over the past week. Because I know that because our USC women's soccer team, I think, got snowed in over the weekend. They were playing Boulder. So
okay.
that, that was making travel crazy. And it's also it's the way it goes right now. There's a lot of travel changes and a lot of stories of a lot of teams having some crazy travel. And I mean, even shout out to Michelle Tumalo, freaking driving like 15 hours to get her team's COVID test to play their first game.
I saw that.
Season.
Yeah, that's insane. I saw that. That's awesome. That's really cool.
So, it's a crazy season, but, kids and coaches just want to play. So, just get out there and compete.
Yeah.
All right, cool. In this clip, we're going to be focused on what we call an off-ball fill. This concept happens when a player fills over to the ball carrier and gets ball side, and it usually leads to a step down, or in this case, an on-the-run shot when our teammate is attacking the pass. If we rewind, what you're going to see is as Eric Molliver for Maryland pushes up the hash, Logan Wisnauskas does a nice job, who's on the backside right now, getting ball side heavy, and his defenders helping down to some of these inside players. And by getting ball side and attacking the pass, he changes the angle of the approach for the Rutgers defender and allows him to get his hands free. This can lead to a step down shot, or here he's able to turn the corner, catch on the move, and get downhill. The off-ball fill is a great thing to have in your arsenal as an off-ball player if you want to be a dynamic scorer.
Nice work. This clip, if this actually props some things in my mind, because this is really tough for defenders. And it's this idea of like, especially when the ball's behind the cage and there's action above the cage. I'm just such a big fan of holding spots and passing guys along. And you'll kind of see what could happen if you don't, and you're second late on it, is the guys are all kind of, the tension's on the dodge, right? If you go right here, if you like look at people as he turns the corner, you keep going a little bit, look at everybody's eyes, like right here, especially on like right here. Look how many eyes are on the dodge. So as Jared starts to cut through here, his man's a little late going with it, and the cross guy covering Logan there is a little late as well. Whereas if those guys kind of talked, like Logan will be kind of filling in right into where the guy who was covering Jared standing. Right? It's hard. It's really hard. It takes a lot of like awareness, communication, and discipline to execute that. But if you look at like some of the best, most buttoned up defenses out there, a lot of this off ball action, you're going to cut right into where another guy is accepting a cutter versus like constantly chasing guys around.
Yeah. I mean, that's like what we focus a lot on offensively, is if someone's leaving a spot, we want someone else, basically filling into it, or eventually like overloading an area. But that's like a lot of these motions off ball, kind of lead to similar action. So, a lot of times too, and this is kind of looking like a little 2-2-2. A lot of times if you're getting that ball side guy through, he might be cutting through, he might L cut, down into space. Here he cuts through to give space for the Dodger adjacent, but then that leads to the lefty filling over, for that ball side look. And I think it's interesting too, even to your point, right here, I know 29's thinking about sliding, but right there, that's to your point, like 81 can start stepping out a little farther and step up into that area versus, they're playing everything inside 10 yards. You get a 10-yard shot, and that's what you want.
Yeah. It's like you never want to be following cutters or chasing cutters. You want to be kind of accepting them, meeting them. And so when you play more spots, you're much more likely to, guys need to cut to space. It's like a zone, like the reason you go into a zone is that you're plopped in these areas offense wants to get to. And so if you kind of trust that, and like you can follow a guy across, you can follow Jared across a little, but as soon as you see another guy coming your way and Jared's moving towards a teammate, well, now you can just step out and Logan will run right into you, right? Rather than you both chase your guy across each other. It's hard because it requires communication. You're like, well, what if I switch and he doesn't, then I leave my guy open on the backside? It's probably the thought that goes through your head, or I just got to make sure I'm with my guy type of thing is very common default for defenders. But if you can really lock that down, it just allows all this action, spaghetti and nonsense and the fills above the cage to become much more manageable for a defense than chaotic.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And something that's interesting too is like, this is where just if you're off ball, like I have guys a lot of times trying to ask me about like finding skip lanes and things like that. Like you can keep taking a peek at your defender's head, and even just this half second where he's flipping his hips, for there, he doesn't look at the shooter, for maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, and then by that time, he's already starting to fill over, and now he's never going to get there, So to your point, if you're not accepting the cutter and you're trying to stay with and follow across, I think, the opposite of this fill look, Matt, would probably be him driving up and hitting a skip to this guy fading opposite the flow of the ball. And that's where a guy might be drifting over and folding the page too much without seeing his teammate. And then you can go against the grain, against the flow of the ball, and we can skip it back to this area for a shot.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you hear coaches harp so much on your off-ball stance and your off-ball posture and positioning, because getting that full chest to ball look, even for those 2 seconds right there, allows analysis just to get that little shift of angle without you seeing. And then by the time he makes his break and you catch him, then it's too late, right? So you kind of have to be anticipatory of where he might break to and keep repositioning yourself there, rather than wait till, you catch him on his break and then follow. Because at this level, even at high school level, some of these guys off ball are so good offensively, and the teammates will throw the pass that if you're chasing, it's just going to be hard to disrupt the play.
Now, for my knowledge, because I'm hoping to expand my defensive repertoire, how concerned are you with 88 keeping his chest to 12 as he turns and flips his hips versus flipping his hips towards goal line like this?
Yeah, it's a good question. It doesn't matter to me what direction it is. If he was on the crease, about to slide, maybe I would care more. He's kind of in that back fill role in space. So I actually would prefer him to keep his eyes on the ball as long as possible. So not to turn to Logan here, but turn the direction he turns. But I would say is this position he's living now, you can't live there. That's got to be a transition phase. So he's got to go from what he was. Now he's got to get his left hip more to Logan and his right hip more to the ball carrier, and keep snapping that head back. And as Logan drifts over, well, he has no responsibility on that back pipe right there. He's got to realize he's got to you see how Logan basically drifts east-west about, 4 yards to the middle, and he does not get across with him as much and actually drops lower on the same plane. So now you can see even the skip to Logan right now would be open for a step down if he could get it there. And by the time the carry keeps happening, he's no longer in that position to meet Logan on the pass or cut off his cut. Well, the other thing that happened is if 81 right here covering Jared can get in a good off-ball stance, and as Jared starts to cut right here, those two guys, 80, the backside defender covering Logan, would ideally almost crash down on Jared and tell 81 right there, hey, take Logan coming over. And 81 would just fly on a straight line and they would be cutting into each other, right? Logan's cutting into his territory. So he would actually be running into where 81 already is. Yeah, right. As the play developed in an ideal world, right? He would take Jared right there and yep, exactly. Rather than both of them end up chasing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see that a lot. And again, this feels nitpicky, but again, it's kind of the point of, I think earlier you were saying, this defender, his hips and dropping were on this plane while Wisnauskas was moving east-west on this plane. And then if 81 right now, his hips look a little more closed off here. If he can open up a little more like this, he's going to see 12 in his peripheral vision and be ready to make that pass off and step right into that passing lane.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. And a little higher. Like, I don't know what responsibilities are here. It seems like a lot of guys think they have the same responsibility where like 3 guys are shoving to the ball right now. You really only need 1 guy there to the ball, and the other guys have to kind of drift up and get to the guys. You can't have everybody packed within a 4-yard cube.
Yeah, for sure. And I also just have to shout out the near side shot here, because even though that's stick side high, so many guys always want to pull this offside.
Yeah.
And to just change it up and put that much speed on it, like sometimes goalies are just late to that. So it's a great play all around.
Yeah. Cool. What do we got? One more here?
How about I don't know if it was Kyle Devitt, or maybe some other guys. Who were they shouting out, Makar or Grill? Maybe it was Grill before the game. Then some guys were talking about Makar being maybe the best defender in the country after the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I know it's Grill has been getting a lot of attention from like Big Ten awards, and rightfully so. And Makar has been, probably until Grill transferred in, taking the number 1 matchup. And now they've been playing teams with 2 pretty good attackmen. So they caught us flip back and forth. They've both been having phenomenal years. I've actually really enjoyed watching their defense play. I actually thought watching both of them, and I cut some clips up, both of them in this game did some really nice things. Makar's been at X mostly, and kind of we saw what the Penn State done a really nice job actually of showing up and clogging up lanes and playing this guy at X and being really physical around GLE. Grill's had an extremely active stick, and his footwork's been great, and just a very, very smart defender in his positioning. So if you watch the game, he did a really nice job. I think is it Curse? Is that for Rutgers he was covering?
I'm not positive.
That's I think it was. But he did a tough matchup and did a really nice job of moving well with him from above the cage and sitting on his right hand, and his footwork's great, his patience was great. He's a really good defender to watch.
Oh yeah, Curse, the 5th year from Nova.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he's had a great year so far too. So
he's a good player.
Yeah, for sure. Nice. Well, good stuff. Yeah, no, it's cool to see. We played against and still play against BJ Grill, Nick's older brother, and BJ is super technical defender. Led a great Marquette defense, over their inaugural 4 years, making the playoffs our senior year. So,
yeah, it's been fun to watch.
All right, last one here. All right, so I wanted to throw in some pick play here, and we're going to see some razor action with a slip. And you see Wisnauskas slip up, change of direction at X, and then getting a nice step down forward. And so what I want to highlight here, again, showing the razor pick, but slipping because of having a pull matchup. And then as he fades up the arm and up the hash, he's ready, butt to the sideline, ready to step down. And as he gets too much of a show adjacent here, he's ready to take advantage off ball. Nice single forward. Matt, what are you thinking about when you're being this adjacent show spot, from Rutgers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you got to be really cognizant of who you are showing from and where he is on the field. I think it's okay to show two dodges adjacent at X. However, you can't be that low below the 5-yard marker. And also, it's huge to have great body posture and have your stick in the lane. If you notice how he gets sucked in, he leaves an easy transfer pass. So if you're going to showdown, you really want to make sure you're playing that passing lane with your stick so it's not an easy skip up to a shooter. And I think that's a difficult one, but one thing you don't want to do from that wing is fly down to the dodge at X, if that makes sense. You can kind of jab down and hedge, but if you see kind of like that off-ball posture stuff we just talked about, getting your chest fully to the dodge doesn't allow you to see Wisnauskas here. But if you can get that hip to the dodge and your stick up in the lane and kind of get more in that passing lane, well, Wisnauskas is going to have to kind of move around the lane a little bit. It won't get that like pure step down from 10 in the hash.
Yeah, for sure. And this is probably too where, Maltz does a great job inside of being active for Maryland. So I could see why you'd be kind of hypersensitive to that action inside. But then it takes him out of position, for that ball side step down. And just a nice job of 12 too. I think I said stretching up the arm, referring to the 8-meter arm in women's lacrosse. But he just does a nice job of floating up to space and finding enough room to get his hands free, but also to give the Dodger, some space to try and turn the corner. But yeah, I think you're right, because it's also you might have to give up something, right? And maybe this up the hash contested shot, even though I think this is Kyle Long, he's a baller, honestly. But
yeah, it's good, man.
But Wisnauskas from 9 or 10 with a strong hand, it's also you got to pick your poison at times too.
Yeah, I will say to that earlier point, I was going to even go back to a couple layers before, where when you get a shorty behind and you think you have to help to it, it's really hard to help when the on-ball carrier can change direction. So, because you don't right now, the guy covering Wisnauskas, who has the ball there? Is it Long or
I think
is that the Mayo?
Long.
Or it's Long. It's Long. Yeah, as he comes across here, the guy covering Wisnauskas does have more back pipe responsibility, so he's not in a bad spot. But as he transfers back, now he's got to get back out, and somebody else would ideally the new backside would crash down if you want to slide from the crease, and the guy covering Wisnauskas would start to get out to Wisnauskas. But when it happens that fast and the guy can change direction back and forth, it makes it very difficult to decide where you're going to kind of fill, help, and show from.
Yeah, this is a big time goal too. 2-goal game, 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I think it also just, what I like too is, and I was looking at a few other clips that I was debating for our segment, just speaks to guys' willingness to hit the simple forward passes, and be ready to hit it early enough versus just scanning the field for skips.
Right.
Just nice recognition, and then he gives it up early. It's hard to teach some of that, and it's hard to get, young players sometimes to see the simple forward where you always want to look inside. You want to look through, you're thinking home run, but it's a great play and great dodge. And I love how they use that razor pick as, a way to honestly change the angle of the dodge so that when he carries across X, now the short stick D midi has to navigate the back of the crease.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one
Right,
of those
man.
ones.
Well, good
I
stuff.
don't. Yeah, yeah. I don't know what their invert plan was, but if you're going from the crease, you can just keep them going that way. It's all better. But yeah, man, good stuff. That was a lot. Those were some good clips.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're gonna put these up. Um, and I'm fired up to see him come to fruition. Who do the Terps have this weekend?
What's this weekend? Who do they have? I feel like I know it, but like I don't. I don't. It's not Ohio State. They've played everybody, I think, right? I think they've run through the Big Ten: Hopkins, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Rutgers. Um, I feel like it's Ohio State, but I'm not sure. I could be wrong. Um, I don't know. Who's Duke
Yeah, it
got?
looks like so they got Ohio State, then Rutgers, then Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Hopkins.
So Ohio State this weekend.
Yep, on the
Cool.
20th. That
Cool.
should
That's
be a
what I
good
thought.
one. It seems like the Big Ten's been some good battles.
It has been, man. I think I saw Coach Tierney after the Denver Georgetown game say something like, somebody quoted it. He's like, yeah, the good thing is like we're getting better. Like the bad thing is like so is everybody else, or something like that, or like they haven't shown their best yet. Which it's interesting because I think a lot of teams, based off how the season started, will continue like evolving. So how you saw like, you know, Maryland play Ohio State the first time or Hopkins play Ohio State, I think those will all be different games.
Matt, before we break it off, you're coaching with the Loyola Dons, both of our alma mater. Give us a quick season preview. I know you've got the Boys Latin Lakers coming up next Tuesday. How are you feeling about the squad?
Yeah, man, we got the Lakers coming up. I feel good about it. We just had we're kind of just getting started in the last couple weeks, so not a ton of time together. The good news is we have a really core veteran group of guys, especially on the defensive end. And I'm just really happy for the guys to get back out on the field, after last year we got cutting short. And we have a pretty good lineup. So one MIA game a week is the plan. Very talented league, talented conference. So I feel good about it. We got some really good players on defensive end. So if you see us giving up 10 plus goals, I think it's fair to blame it on the coaching.
Sounds good. I'll keep an eye out. Excited to watch the Dons, and great stuff tonight.
Yeah, man. Good stuff.
All right, I'll see you.